Hello there and welcome once again to Premier League Weekly. I'm Josh, joined as always by Tom, and we've got a bit of a different kind of Premier League Weekly for you. Certainly this week, maybe in the future, we'll see how it goes. So what we're going to try and do is split the show into a review show and a preview show, offering the clues for the guests who at the end of the review show and giving the answers at the end of the preview show. So we are going to kick off with last week's FA Cup action, seeing as there are no games in the Premier League. And we're going to kick off with Doncaster losing at home to Crystal Palace 2-0. Now, Palace currently sit 13th in the Premier League. They've got Watford away in the next round. Tom, do you think that Palace could potentially reach the final for the second time in, 4 years? Because they're pretty much guaranteed to avoid relegation. They probably are going to be throwing all their eggs into the FA Cup basket.
Well, I think it depends on the draw. I think if City and United get each other, there's a very good chance, obviously, that one of Watford, Palace and Wolves will make the final, which is exciting for them, I suppose. And also a fact that I think despite being 13th, they're only about 3 points off the relegation zones. So they're not quite there yet. There's a lot of traffic down that way. So they've got to be wary about injuries and things like that. But if they can keep a decently good run in the Prem that puts them almost clear of relegation, and they've got no injuries for the cup games, I don't see any reason why they can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of their manager, Roy Hodgson, who of course took over at Selhurst Park when the club was in the depths of despair in the 4-match Frank de Boer era, losing 4 games out of 4, scoring no goals. How remarkable is the job that he's done? I mean, 13th in and of itself perhaps doesn't seem like much. But let's not forget that, as I said, they were rooted to the bottom of the league when he took over. He steered them to safety, perhaps against all the odds. Admittedly, it wasn't that far into last season. And as she said, even though they're only 3 points above the drop zone, I think we can see there's a massive gulf in quality between the teams, even sort of going up to 17th and 16th, than between Palace and 13th. So I think maybe for that reason alone, they probably are safe. So is it fair to say that Hodgson isn't quite getting the praise that he deserves?
I think he is, actually. I think a lot of people who had a bias against him after the England job are beginning to be won over to the fact that actually maybe that England job was unlucky. Maybe he didn't have the FA's backing behind him to the level he'd have liked. And they've seen he's given them an identity, a shape, everything in fairness, that he didn't do with England. He's given them a shape. They play a nice 4-3-3, 4-4-2, one of the two, and have a really nice identity. They've brought in well. They've got Max Meyer, who is an excellent player at Schalke, and Wilfried Zaha, of course, who obviously isn't brought in, but is a really good player to have kept hold of. And I think Roy, just like he did at Fulham all those years ago now, taking him to the Europa League final, and I believe 2011, 2012? Not 2012, probably 2010, 2011. And he's doing exactly the same job at Palace, yeah.
So what do you make of their quarter-final clash with Watford then? They're away from home. Watford have had a pretty good start, pretty good season so far. So going to be a tough fixture for
Really
both sides.
Really tough.
Do you think that Palace have got enough? I'm not going to quite come to you for a prediction, but at this early stage, the clash isn't for another few weeks yet, but at this early stage, do you think that Palace have got enough to overcome Watford?
I think they have enough, but I think it'll be a fantastic cup tie. Because, as you say, Watford even more can focus on the FA Cup now, really. They're safe as safe goes. They are in a very similar position to Palace, have a really nice shape, an identity. And I keep using those words, but I think it's really important that the manager isn't jumbled up with his ideas. I think Javi Garcia is excellent. And I think it'll be one of those cup ties where each team throws a kitchen sink at each other, and hopefully we'll see some goals. And in my view, it could literally go either way.
Well, indeed it could. And we're going to move from teams perhaps in the bottom half of the table to the clash of two of the top six, namely Manchester United and Chelsea United. Unfortunately for you, Tom, fortunately for me, coming out 2-0 victors there with goals from Ander Herrera and Paul Pogba. So, Tom, I'm not going to jump into too much analysis just yet. What were your thoughts from that game?
I had two words as soon as the game was done. And unfortunately, in the last few times we'd lost, I'd come to my senses. But this time, Sarri out. I think he's playing the same players, same failed ways. I mean, Marcus Alonso not tracking back. You know, why is Kovacic playing? Why is Alonso playing? You know, and I'm just so sad and fed up. And as soon as I saw the Chelsea lineup, I pretty much knew you guys were going to do us, to be honest. And that's the worst thing about it.
Well, it's interesting you say Sarri out. That has been the knee-jerk reaction every single time. Maybe not so much amongst fans, but with the managers, with the hierarchy at Chelsea. Every time something doesn't go right, manager out. There's two options: either you win the league or you're sacked. It seems to be as simple as that at Stamford Bridge, and it has been since 2003. But I think if we look at, let's say, Manchester United, who have had similar experiences and fortune over the last 4 or 5 years, where if you don't make the top four, you're out. I mean, we saw that with David Moyes. We saw that with LVG, despite winning the FA Cup. Mourinho only kept his job probably in this first season because we won the Europa League, finished second last season, abysmal start to this season. We've brought Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in. He's done a remarkable job so far in his first 12, 13 games. Do you think that is the right approach that Chelsea should take? And the reason I ask that with about 70,000 question marks after it is because Chelsea isn't a club that looks after its legends in the same way that, let's say, Manchester United does. But I think with Solskjaer, it was very much a welcome home, whereas Chelsea were very much happy to push Frank Lampard out. They were very much happy to push John Terry out. So why will it be any different if, let's say, Gianfranco Zola comes in? Because Chelsea haven't, the only identity Chelsea as a football club really has is disloyalty both to its players and to its managers.
So I'm not so sure about that amongst the fans, in all honesty. I think these legends, they collaborate with the club a lot. They're always at Stamford Bridge. And I think if Zola came in, if anything, all it would do is it would add, much like Solskjaer did, a sense of fun to the club. And I think instead of this rigid shape that I think is botched and not working, he'll be much more confident in changing the formation, going to a 4-2-3-1. I think until the end of the season, these players just need they just need to be released from Sarri's jumble and mishmash of ideas that for me just is not working. And it was a shame because he started so brilliantly, but it's just a matter to me when I watch his press conferences that I think he's getting it completely wrong, unfortunately.
Okay, well, final word on that fixture, more to Solskjaer. Will winning the FA Cup and the FA Cup alone, that's to say, not winning the Champions League, not finishing in the top four, will that be enough to keep him in the job come next season?
No, I think they'll send him out on a high. They'll say, thank you, Ollie, thanks for the FA Cup. You got us in Europa League. And they'll pass it on to a more experienced pair of hands. I think the FA Cup alone, much like Conte, much like Van Gaal, and albeit in the circumstances would be kind of harsh, but I think it wouldn't be enough commercially for United. And I think it would make sense for United to go for someone, a more experienced name if they don't get Champions League football.
I'd have to disagree with that, but I think we'll leave that one there. Final word then. United have Wolves in the next round. Thoughts ahead of that game quickly?
Tough, really tough. Wolves have knocked Liverpool out so far this year, and I can see very much them doing United if you guys aren't careful.
Yeah, well, certainly it's a game that could be a banana skin game, but we'll see. Anyway, that does round off this week's reviews of the FA Cup 5th round. We are going to quickly go through the clues of this week's Guess Who. So over to you, Tom.
So again, if you guys haven't seen, we do 3 clues of a mystery footballer, and your job is to guess that player. He's played in the Premier League, as always, from now on, and I will give shout-outs to anyone who can give it to me on my Twitter, at Tovers98, check below. And my 3 clues are as follows. He played in the Premier League for 8 different clubs. He played in 3 different countries. And he's won only domestic cups in his career.
Right. Okay, that is a tough one. Okay, well, I'll spend the next few hours trying to think about the answer to that one. We are going to review the answer to you on our preview show, which will be coming out on Friday. But until then, thanks from me, thanks for Tom, thanks for watching.